In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to build a dynamic text cleaning solution using the Power Query Text.Trim function. The goal is to remove unwanted characters from the beginning and end of text values without hard coding those characters into M code. Now instead, we'll store all the characters we want to remove inside of a separate table. And this makes the solution flexible because users can update the list at any time without modifying the query. Now let's look at the two tables that we're going to be working with. The raw text table is what you see here. Our first table contains messy text values, as you can see here. It's got unwanted characters at the beginning and end of the text that we truly want. And then in some cases it has spaces too. Now our goal is to keep only the meaningful text within the unwanted characters. And now let's look at the characters table. Let's go over here. Now this is our characters table. The table contains every character we want Power Query to remove, including spaces. Now notice the final row over here. It contains a space character. Now this means Power Query will remove leading and trailing spaces along with all the special characters shown in this table. An advantage of this design is that users can simply add or remove rows from the table whenever requirements change, and no M code modifications will be needed. Now, let's look at these tables in Power Query. Now, I've already loaded these into Power Query. Let's go over here. Let's load these tables ourselves. So I'm going to do a table or data from table range. Give it a second to load up. So here we are in Power Query, and the two tables have been loaded. And you can see we have the raw text table and then the characters table over here. And now what we want to do is we want to create this output over here. As you can see here, this was the raw text, and this is the cleaned up text or trimmed text that what we want. So it trimmed this text and removed all these unwanted characters, including any spaces. And so let's look at the code behind this that actually does this. So let's go up here, click on Advanced Editor. So this is the code behind it. So the first line of code where it says trim characters equal characters, and then in square brackets, character. Now this line is doing something very important. The characters query, which is over here on the left, is currently in a table format. We know that is because this icon next to that is representation of a table. So we know it's still in a table format. And Power Query sees it like this. So however, the text.trim function, which we're going to be using down here in the code, does not work with tables. It requires a list. So when we write this code here, characters, which is referring to the characters query, and then we're referencing in square brackets where this tells Power Query we're going to reference the character column, the char column in the characters query. Power Query extracts the entire char column and automatically converts it into a list. And when it looks like a list, it takes all those individual values in that column and puts it in curly brackets. And that tells Power Query, okay, this is a list. Now, we started off with a table, okay? And then we ended up with a list because this is what this line of code does. And this is one of the most common patterns in Power Query development. We store values in a table, and then we convert the column to a list. Then we pass this list into a function. As you'll see down here, we pass it into a function. The table is easier for users to maintain. That's why we keep it in a table. And the list is what Power Query functions need in order to perform calculations. Now let's go on to the next step here. Now we're making a reference here. Next, we create a reference to the table containing our dirty text values, which is this raw text is the table that has the dirty values in there. And raw text means we're referring to this query above here, and we're assigning it a new variable called source. And that's all we're doing. And now let's add what we did here. We're adding this column that you see here, okay? And what this does here is we're creating a name variable called add clean text, and it's going to equal to the table.addColumn function. The first argument to the add column function is what table are we actually working with? Well, we're working with the source table, which is this reference variable, and that points to this query above here. And then the next argument is we're adding a column. So what are we gonna call this new column? And then we're just gonna call it trim text. And that's what you see here. Trim text is the name of the column. Okay. And then basically we're gonna perform something on each and every single row here. So down in this code, what the each keyword does is we're going to calculate a value for each and every single row in this source table, okay? And the formula is, and what formula are we going to apply to that calculation? And that's this formula right here, okay? So what this does is it performs Text.Trim. Let's move this over here. So let's say we're on this first row here, and we're going to perform the Text.Trim. So we're going to take the raw text in square brackets. We're referring to the raw text column in the source table, which happens to be this query over here. But we're showing it over here in the new table that we create. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to pass to it. It's going to perform a calculation using trim characters. Trim characters is just a list of all the characters we want to remove. So what that means is if in this particular case, these @ symbols in the first row and these pound signs, Power Query checks the beginning of the text. Are the @ symbols contained in the trim characters list that we have over here? And if it is, it will remove them. It does the same, it does this next same thing for the next check for the ending characters over here, the pound sign. So if the pound symbol is within the character list or trim characters list here, okay, if it is, we're going to remove them. And then the result is we're just going to grab everything else, and you wind up with hello world. And now notice the same thing over here. Let's look at this over here. So we have question marks, and it looks like we have a space. So after removing the question marks, because question marks are within the trim characters list, we do have leading spaces and trailing spaces. Well, space is also part of that trim characters list. It's in there. And because our characters table includes a space character, Power Query treats spaces exactly like any other character in a list. And then the result becomes what's in between that. So again, it follows the same process for every single row. That's what each does. It goes through that process for each and every single row in the raw text query. And then the last argument, type equals text, all it's doing is whatever the result of that calculation is, we're just going to make it a data type of text. And then at the end of this, it's going to return add clean text. This is the variable. So that's what it's going to return. And that's why we wind up with a new query with the old column and the new column. So, so the key takeaway here is the most important lesson here is not the Text.Trim function itself. The real lesson is understanding how Power Query moves between tables and lists, which I showed. And the characters query is stored as a table because tables are easier for users to edit. And when we write the characters in square brackets to char column, Power Query automatically extracts that column and then converts it to a list. That list and then is passed on into the Text.Trim function that we done down here. Okay, this creates a highly maintainable solution because users control which characters are removed simply by updating the characters table and refreshing the query. No hard-coded values, no M-code changes are needed. Just an update, just update the table in Excel and then refresh the query. So now let's get back into Excel. So now we're back in Excel. This was the raw text query. So let's do an example here how we can change some things just in Excel and then refresh the output. And let's get the income. So let's go back here. Let's add a new row. And I'm just going to put a new character in there, which is our character symbol. And then the caret symbol. And then we're going to do that. So that's a new row that we just added. Let's go to the characters table and let's add a new row here because we want to remove the carets. So that created a new row here. So now this is the output. And let's go ahead and let's do a refresh on this. Okay. Right click on here. Let's refresh the query. And see what it did here. It added the new row here. And then it removed those characters from there. So that's how simple it is. So when you create this type of query, you create a separate table that contains all the characters you want to remove. And then at the end, you don't have to do anything with the M code. You just have to refresh your table. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful for you today. And remember to subscribe to my channel and please like and share this video because this helps us get out to the community. Thanks again for your time. You have a great day and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye now.